have come to observe that whenever people do something that others can't understand, they tend to ascribe such to the devil.
I no go lie, na here Igbo pass black man. No. A white man would basically see something and it was going to pique his curiosity. He will try to understand what is actually happening. He will try to know why that thing is behaving that way. He would not first of all try to give it one kind of a spiritual meaning. He would first of all try to basically understand, why does this thing work this way? Why is it working this way? What if you put it this way? And when the white man basically is having this mentality, he's passing that sense of curiosity onto his children. You will now see his children, maybe in the time of his father was doing something in a certain way. The child will say, my father did this in a certain way. Why don't I do it in this way? The Oyibo, the white child, the Peking, he would basically bring up new ways of how to do the same thing that me and you are basically ascribing and attributing to some kind of a spiritual being. Now, if we bring it down to Igbo culture, or if we bring it down to our own society as in like Africa, because all this juju mentality, it is predominant in African countries. Now, if we're trying to bring it down to Igbo, now you see people demonizing the Dibia and what the Dibia is doing, especially in terms of Ogun. When the Dibia basically finds two herbs, mixes them together, and says some kind of few words, and we spiritualize it. Now, when you see people in the church and they're praying against charms, you're literally praying against roots. That's why in Igbo spirituality, ordinarily, when you have a problem relating to charm, you don't see the Dibia basically going into the shrine to go and ring bells or call the spirits. No. What the Dibia does is to go to the bush and get leaves and herbs and roots, which the Dibia is going to basically use to counter effects and counteract whatever thing somebody has done for you, the evil eye or the bad luck or the bad spell that have been cast on you. They basically go into the bush because they know that what the person that sent that thing on you used are basically roots and herbs that they can basically find a counter effect. And this is why our ancestors have this aphorism, this proverb. I say, dibia gwolo manozo bulu dibia. And they would also tell you, okay, manka imankozo. You know these herbs, you know these roots. Do you also know these roots? Do you also know what this root is capable of doing? This is the Oyibo man mentality where our ancestors have, and that is not what we fought, what we lost. Now, instead of us to basically understand how all those things work, we basically think that we'll go to the church and we'll pray against all those things, and by praying against them, that's magically something magical is going to happen. This is why the pastors will basically employ people and give them and say, oh yeah, come and fall around. And people will think, holy, yeah, this person is possessed by God. God is working through this person. These things is because our minds has been enslaved and colonized, that we can no longer truly see or think for ourselves as Africans, as Igbo. The only thing we know is what the pastor told us, what the church told us, what we feel or what we think. And these people are these pastors, they are master manipulators because they know what the African mind thinks. They know that what they see that they don't understand, they fear it. So this fear mongering is what they use to basically keep people docile. It's what they basically make sure that you don't try to basically think outside the box, try to see things and experience things other than what the church has made you think or see. So when we see things, we need to try to understand why these things are happening this way. Even the things, the charms, the juju that are being prepared with roots, we also need to understand why. Why is it that this person can basically, put these roots and put that? What is the properties of these roots? What are they doing? Why is it that the DBA can basically use it to basically do one or two things on somebody and will start shouting, oh, this thing is very mythical. We need to understand it, and for us to understand it, we need to basically start looking into this system. Now, when we talk about reverting or going back to our indigenous systems, 90% of the time we're not talking about we should go and start, rubbing red clothes and tying white clothes and start, loitering, disturbing our rivers and, littering that place. When we're talking about people going back to the indigenous systems, we're talking about what can we use, what do we have in this our environment that we can basically use it, bring them, and basically understand what it means, and what we can basically, problems we can basically use them to solve in this our current reality. Our ancestors did it, our forefathers did it, but in our generation, in the time of our generation of our fathers, they lost it. And I guess it's because of them not really knowing. Because for you to basically fight something, you need to understand what you're fighting. So this is what Igbo Africans we should wake up from. When we see something, it should basically spark our curiosity. We should have a drive, a zeal to basically understand what these things are and why they are working or functioning in a certain way. Because when we understand why this thing is this way, we can now be able to use it to develop our society. And this is where the Dibia comes in. Now, I wrote something before. We need to demystify our culture. We need to demystify everything about us. Many people are not going to agree, but this is the only way for us to basically improve the Igbo consciousness. We need to first of all demystify, because these things, our culture, the things we have in our environment, we've wrapped them in layers and layers and layers of spirituality. Of this thing is spiritual, this thing is spiritual, these things are sacred, these things are that, this one is da 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 da. So it means that as we are basically entering the age of Aquarius, the age of enlightenment, it means that we should basically start researching and knowing and stop making assumptions. Now, many of us now are happy that ordinarily the Igbo spiritual system is basically coming back. But what is actually trying to tell us that what's the age of Aquarius, the age of Orgaum, what is trying to tell you is that we need to start working with facts. We no longer live in the time of belief, in the time of speculations, in the time of assumptions. We now live in the time of knowing. Orgaum, the age of enlightenment, it means the age of knowing, the age of working with facts, and which means that we have to push boundaries, we need to explore, we need to basically be curious. Then from there, we now set up or establish something that is going to trickle into the next generation, meaning that our predecessors or the next generations are now going to build a better African society, a better Igbo society based on the foundation that we have currently laid. And we cannot lay all those foundations when we've wrapped up everything about us with fears and speculations and fears. And the Christianity is not even doing us any good. So we need to stop listening to these pastors, listening to the church, and start using our mind to think, to be creative, to ignite our curiosity. And from there, we're going to have a better and developed Igbo land. So follow for more if you like this kinds of content. My name is Somto.